When I played Persona 3 for the first time, I'd probably be in agreement with a lot of these lists. I mean, I personally wouldn't put Makoto first, but I would definitely put Ken at around 10th or 11th. And so does the majority of people. But why do we hate Ken so much? Well, I can't remember what made me hate Ken. I mean, he's a little kid, and I mean, we love Nanako, and he's involved in arguably the most memorable scene from the game. I feel like a lot of people hate him because of Shinjiro's death, and people might think he's responsible for it. Some people just think he's kind of adding nothing to the plot, or he's annoying. So, look, in my first playthrough, I was personally just indifferent to him. In a game of amazing characters, he never stood out to me. Then I played Persona 3 Reload. I never thought there was a need for a Persona 3 remake. I already loved the gameplay, the graphics didn't bother me, and I'd prefer if Atlus worked on Persona 6. What I didn't expect from this remake is to completely alter my experience of the story. To be honest, my favorite part of Reload wasn't the flashy graphics, the additions to gameplay, the new music. It was the new voice acting and the Link episodes. These two things completely changed my perspective of Persona 3. Before I start getting into Ken's character and why I love him so much and how Persona 3 Reload changed my experience with him, I just want to quickly do a shameless plug and ask you to like or even subscribe. This is my second video on YouTube and I'd really appreciate it. Also, there will be spoilers for Persona 3 in this video, even though I literally just dropped a massive bomb, I'm sorry. Anyway. As mentioned earlier, Ken is obviously involved in a key moment of the story, but this isn't all he adds. He is, and maybe this is a bit of a hot take, but in my opinion, the most on-point character of all of Persona 3. Persona 3 is all about, like, accepting what it means to live on your own terms in an, I can never say it, existentialist perspective. While each character comes to their own realization, Ken's was really impactful for me personally. Ken lost his mother when he was 8 and devoted his life to killing her murderer. When he finds out that this murderer is Shinji, he decides to meet him on the day of his mother's murder. He gives this whole speech on why he's gonna kill Shinji, which you should really not do if you're planning on killing someone, but whatever. And Shinji replies with, "Oh, if you decide to take my life, you'll end up just like me, remember that." Personally, I'm a philosophy nerd, so I find this whole concept of like, what line can justice cross really interesting. Especially in media such as like Death Note or Danganronpa, and this concept isn't mentioned again. It's just something that, you know, Ken adds to the story, and I think it's kind of a shame that they didn't expand on it more. But the message is not to devote your life to revenge, and while I'm sure most players don't have a parental figure that they would like to avenge, I feel like everyone, to a certain extent, is able to relate to the myth of revenge and how, you know, you may think revenge will help you and it doesn't. Okay, well, I get where people are coming from when they say this. I mean, Shinji wouldn't have been there if Ken hadn't called him there, but in a quite literal sense, Ken did not actually kill Shinji. It was, what? But in a quite literal sense, Ken did not actually kill Shinji, it was Takaya. And Shinji was on limited time anyways because of the suppressants, so yeah, well, I'm not gonna deny that Ken is partially responsible, but it is really unfair to hate on his character just because of that. It's clearly something that he regrets and he blames himself for, and I think it's a really important moment in his character arc and in the whole game, so maybe we should be thanking him. Ken's Link episodes are by far my favorite, which I really was not expecting. I never realized just how much a bit of extra content could do for a character. I mean, in these episodes, we just really get to see his childlike side, and this was a massive criticism of the original Persona 3, that he was just not enough like a kid, he didn't feel like a real character. So, in the first Linked episode, we take Ken out for dinner, and Featherman appears on the TV, and he gets all excited before quickly, like, playing cool and being like, yeah, I don't care, I'm not like other kids. And yeah, you know, you really get the impression that he's a kid just trying to be cool, but also that he's a kid that was forced to grow up too fast, and I guess I never really saw his character in that light before. Once we leave, we meet a kid from Ken's class who asks him if he'll join the soccer team. Ken's like, oh, you know, I'll have to pass. I'm not sure if I can make it to next month. Which might just seem like a throwaway line at first, like, what does he even mean by that? But as someone who has played the original Persona 3, this made my heart drop. It is very clear what he is implying, especially when you know about his plan on October 4th. And I don't know why when I was playing Reload this hit me so hard, but because like he does mention it in original Persona 3. There's like this throwaway line where he's like, oh, I was planning on killing myself after killing you or something. And like I remember being like, oh, that's weird, but it never really hit me. And these linked episodes really hone in on this like, you know, suicidal ideation that Ken has. Which is really disturbing because this is a 10-year-old. And this is not, I'm not making a stretch here. As we see in the second linked episode when we meet his hamster, he asks us to take care of it if anything happens to Ken. And again, he's hinting towards his plan. And then, you know, when Makoto's hesitant, he's like, oh, I'll give you everything I own. I'll give you all my money, all my comics, because, you know, he's not going to need that in the afterlife. And then, you know, when Makoto reluctantly agrees, because he's like, oh, it's not like Ken's going to die anyway. He's 10 years old. Ken's like, oh, like, thanks. And he tells the hamster, when that happens, you better listen to him. So I'm just providing evidence that it's very clear that he's talking about his suicide here. I'm not just jumping to conclusions. This is very, very clearly implying, you know, what he's going to do on October 4th. And this is genuinely disturbing when you know the plot. And the fact that the hamster is named Hamburger reminds you that this is a literal kid saying this stuff. Like a 10-year-old. And just for me, like, I find that very, I don't want to say powerful, because that sounds like a positive word, but very moving, I'd suppose. Like, Ken's linked episodes was such an emotional roller coaster for me, and I feel like that's how you know it's a good character. If you feel something, like if you could not care less about a character, that means that they don't matter. But for me personally, I found this really moving, and if you didn't, you're crazy, because I was like crying. And anyway, the next episodes come after Shinji's death. They're not really that notable. Ken just gets more screen time, which he desperately needs, because he had an offensive lack of screen time before. Like, I never really realized, but Ken has no screen time. Like, we don't even know this kid, okay? Like, he has no social link in original P3, and he has, like, barely any time in the story, except, like, you know, a few scenes where he's, like, watching Akihiko and Shinji, and obviously Shinji's death, and then he has his resolution where he gets his second awakening, and yeah, that's it. Like, yep, okay, we're done with Ken's arc now. So I feel like that's a valid criticism, but I don't think that means you should hate Ken, okay? Because people are like brutal about this kid. Like, they're like, oh, we hate him, he's so boring, he's so annoying. Like, I literally went to this special Persona 3 event before the game came out, and they were like handing out all these like cool little like what are they called, like it's on screen, okay, those things. And I remember I got these like free postcards, and I stuck them up on my wall because they're really cool. And I was like, oh, there's one of Komaru and Ken on it. I love Komaru, obviously, but Ken, I was like, yeah, I don't need to stick this one up. So I just have this one in my drawer, and yeah, I really need to stick it up because I don't hate Ken anymore, okay? And I feel really guilty. Poor Ken. I came out of Persona 3 Reload having Ken as one of my favorite characters. I just found his story really heartbreaking and him really cute, not in a Kotone way, because, you know. Honestly, I'm curious why people hate him so much now that I've replayed Persona 3 with a more open mind, and I was curious, why was I so uninterested in him? I haven't played the female route in Portable, so if his social link there changed like your view on Ken, then I'd be interested to hear that. But yeah, thank you for watching.